So Mo Vida, you are my most famous guest that I've had so far. Just today, I heard you on Comedy 103.1.
Very nice. You know, I have yet to hear myself, but I'm actually okay with that because I hate my voice.
Well, in that vein, I always ask people because it's probably my biggest fascination in comedy right now. I've said this a couple times to people that have actually heard this or annoyed with it, but you ever say a word so many times that it starts to lose meaning?
Probably.
Yeah, I get that phenomenon with jokes where I'll be writing and I'll be writing and I'll be writing, and then next thing you know, I start to lose sense of even what the fuck is even this. I say this combination of words and I expect people to laugh. It's like, what is it? So I started asking everybody, what is your definition of a joke? What is a joke? What is it? Like, what is it at its nuts and bolts layer?
Let's see if I can articulate this. I mean, there's the construct of a joke, but to me, a lot of times what a joke is the ability to bring an audience along on, you know, a thought and then kind of either flip the thought or point out the ridiculousness of it. So, you know, some people who are more observational, right, that's anchored in reality, right? And they're observing something, but they're able to articulate and make funny, you know, a part of that reality that maybe we all think about or haven't noticed or whatever. And then there's kind of the absurd stuff, right, where you turn it around and there's a twist. But I think in general, I always call us sociologists, like we're the funny sociologists, because we tend to look at society, we tend to look at things that happen, the relationships that we have as human beings, and just kind of offer our own take on it, but make it funny. But that's the hard part, is finding the funny. Like when you watch newer comics, you can tell that, you know, they were in the office and something was funny, but they don't really know how to make it into a joke. And I think sometimes that's the trick, is the joke is finding that twist or absurdity or the punch, right?
Yeah.
Hence punchline, but yeah.
I've always I'm too analytical, so I write down like my actual like types of jokes. So like one of the ones I had wrote down that would kind of coincide with that is like the observational. I always like I call them like state the truth jokes. Like you've got something no one else has seen, it's right in front of everyone's face, right, and you're just kind of outstating it, and it's funny. And then I'll have things like I call it the twist, where you say you're leading up to the thing you think we're going to say, and then you say the opposite. Right. And then one that I've been trying to get away from is one I call, it's essentially puns, but I put a bigger blanket around puns and just call it homophone comedy. Anytime a word, and this is a trap all newbies fall into, me especially, is that anytime a word means the same thing as another word, instant joke. You know, like I have a couple jokes that are grandfathered in that I'd never write today. And one of them is like, if you don't eat a woman's pussy, you're an asshole. And if you don't eat a woman's asshole, you're a pussy. Yeah. So it's essentially just like, oh, pussy means two things and asshole means two things, and we switched them around and haha, guffaw. So I've grandfathered that in. It's already written, and you know, I had a bartender.
I've heard a lot worse.
Right. But
that's pretty solid.
Every new comic, that's like what they rely on. And I know I felt like a good writer. I was like, look how clever I am. And then Chuck Roy, Bear, we were at the Goods one time, and Owen Matthews did a joke, and he's like, that's goddamn genius. And he kind of heckles, you know, he goes, and yet, no laughter. And that little heckle was very big for me, because I realized, like, you know, he was right. That actually was very, very clever and very, very genius, but not funny. So, you know, are you going to stick to, like, that you're a clever little boots, or are you going to be funny? So it's funny how those...
You can find it, but I mean, it's funny that you talk about that, because I did New Talent Night, and there was a comic, and he did a joke, basically, you are what you eat.
So I'm a big pussy.
Same thing.
Yeah.
It was the same type of joke, but that was one of the notes, right? It was like, that's a pretty pedestrian joke.
Yeah, for people that
kind of does it.
Anybody that's out of state that might come across this, we're so blessed in Denver. The Comedy Works lets us call into a hotline in their new talent system, and they'll give us 3 minutes.
We have to do it online now.
Yes, yes. So it's definitely an amazing resource that we get to go up and perform, and then not only that, you get to go in the green room and some combination of veteran comedians will give you notes. The last time I did it, Brent Tobler was there. It was awesome to have. Before that was Nathan Lund, and he was freaking honest with me. He just straight up was like, bro, that joke, it's he didn't outright say it. I could just see it in his eyes. Like, come on. And that was huge. I was like, thank you. It was a joke about babies being like STDs, super heck. And I was busy. I just had the baby, so I was busy. I wasn't focused in.
Nathan was giving you love. He was saying you're better than that.
That's why I miss Deacon Gray. Yeah. He was an evil bastard sometimes. He would just, especially for me, I'm an easier person to beat up, White male, cis, beardo, bald, Denver, fucking half a wook, It's easy for people to be like, look, you suck, you're not as good as you think you are, and God, do I appreciate that. The honest feedback. We don't get enough honest feedback in Denver.
Denver is a very good town as far as audience's willingness to laugh. And I was actually saying to somebody, having started in New York, it's unheard of that, 6 months in or a year in even, that you would be on like a bigger, proper, good stage and in front of a real audience. We don't really get our chance or our shot at doing shows. We have to do these things called bringers, right? Where it's like, okay, we'll let you get up on this stage at this club, but you have to bring like 10 people, or whatever. So you really have, like, Denver is a little bit spoiled that way. But that's also why I think it's so important that there's notes, right? Because it's like, yes, the audience gave you the laughter or whatever, but let's really talk about it from a craft perspective. Comedy is a lot more failure than it is success.
It's an unfathomable amount, and I almost feel like the pain.
Masochist.
Yeah, the pain is literally jet fuel. It's like you can't even get this rocket ship off without the pain.
It's just funny for me to see kind of how things work here. I think the audiences and the venues are wonderful, and it's so nice to see real support for what is an art form, in a lot of places it's not looked at that. Trying to run shows in New York, it was kind of basically, we have a back room or we have a slow night, but we don't want to do marketing, so we're going to make you do it, dumb comic. And whatever. So it was really a struggle. And here it's nice to see that, the venues take it seriously. They give you budgets. People get paid.
Yeah. The fact that we're not out having to bark in the cold, I often think that when I'm outside smoking pot, it's like we could be out in this cold, not chit-chatting. We could be out here like, comedy show. If I get 7 people, I get to go up.
I have barked in bad weather, good weather. It's hilarious.
Well, since I have someone
character,
since I got someone that's actually been exposed, this is a question I've had about bringer shows for a while. And now I know it's obviously both, and it's all contextual about the show. But for the most part, is it when you have a bringer show? Is the bodies good enough to, like, if you bring 10 humans, or do you have to bring 10 paying humans?
No, they have to pay.
Oh, that's the worst.
And it's tough. Like, where I started, the person that I started with, I thought was really fair, and he basically was like, look, if you bring, I think it was like, if you bring 4 people, which is basically 2 couples, right? He's like, if you bring 4 people, you get X amount of minutes. And if you bring more than that, then there was like this sliding scale for actually giving you money.
Oh, wow.
From the money that they were bringing in, because it's a entrance fee and a 2 drinks minimum. So, and I don't know. Look, there are different ways to do that model. I think there were people, and I think I'm very fortunate that I started out with somebody who I felt was very fair. What really stinks is when you're a person short and some of these producers will pull you. And I've seen that happen, and it's gross because it's like you have 14 paying customers here to see this person, and you're not going to let them go up because they don't have the 15th person.
Ooh.
I mean, my family would start a riot, you know?
Yeah, like, holy shit.
Yeah, so I get, you know, and of course it's those situations that everybody hears about, and then they're like, oh, well, that's, you know, terrible, and I'll never do a bringer for that reason. I mean, I've done them, you know, I did one at Caroline's, and again, it was totally reasonable, and the fact that I was performing at Caroline's, a lot of my friends were like, oh my gosh, you know, we know that club, we want to come, that's a legit club, and more people ended up coming out for me anyhow, but, you know, having that picture on that stage and having that tape from that stage, it can help.
Oh, you know? Man, as someone who grew up in the 90s on comedy, the show at Caroline's Comedy, that was one of my favorite. That and Def Jam. I didn't even understand the English language fully yet, but I fucking knew I loved that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, I mean, I wouldn't want to do them now.
Right.
But
well, I also think it's also an advantage. We look at it like it's a hardship, but really it's like motivation, man. Motivation. You get real motivated when you're out there in the cold and you get fucked over and you're like, never again, I'll make sure, you know, because if you got 14 people and they won't let you go on, odds are you might just run outside and be like, fucking comedy show right fucking now, you know.
Well, and I think that's what it is there's a hustle that comes along with that. And sometimes people forget it's a business. I mean, I always laugh and I remind people, I'm like, you know, when Chris Rock is at Madison Square Garden, that's a bringer, right? Like, if he doesn't fill those seats,
right.
He doesn't get, you know.
That's it.
And
that's
they
way to look at it. Pro comedians have bringer shows almost every night if they're not papering the room.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of this thing, and I get it because once you get better, you know, and you're solid and you're funny, what you want to be doing is getting booked on your talent, but it flips back over again because the fact of the matter is as you get better, as you start to build a fan base, you know, when they start to bring you into headline, yes, of course, you have to be funny and you have to have the chops to headline. But, you know, nowadays especially, they're looking at what your social media presence is. They're looking at what your fan base is. They want to know that, you know, if they're having you on and they tag you in something or you retweet it, that's going to help fill the room.
Right.
So you never really get away from that. I mean, bringer is like this dirty word in the business, but I think it's kind of funny because it's forever a bringer, you know?
Right.
It's just how you look at it.
No, you're 100%
it's a business.
right. Fuck.
You know?
Well, we're zipping through this, so I'll just get to the final questions I always ask people. So what's in Mo's world, Miss Mo Vida, what's going good? What's awesome about comedy?
What's awesome? I've been doing some better shows. I've been getting booked as a feature, a headline more. I'm doing different rooms and stuff. So I'm working different muscles. So that's the big one for me is just being able to work those different muscles and being able to headline sets and things like that. So I'll take anything now. It's funny, people apologize and they're like, oh, you know, it's not a big show, not a lot of people here, whatever. And I'm like, everything is an experience. Everything works a different muscle. So
right.
that's been my goal in going on the road. So next I'm just hoping to get a good tape that will get me into some festivals. When I first came here, I was all worried about, oh, do I even have the material? And you start to realize, like, oh, you have this arsenal of material, but it is very different to, you know, entertain a room for 30 minutes. And also, like, if you're headlining and your build as a headliner, you have to carry that show. And that's something I've learned. Like, I've been really fortunate to go on the road with some really good comics. Like, Mike Stanley is an excellent comic.
Yes.
He is an excellent comic. And I've been really lucky that he's taken me on the road with him. And just to watch him, like, you know, I just want to like soak it all up and be like, okay, this is how you do it. You know,
that guy is club tested for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he's amazing in all aspects, right? And so to be able to see that, right? So not just oh yeah, he's funny. Yeah, he is funny. But try to figure out when you're watching it, when you get to watch it a few times, you know, oh, okay, well, you know, how is he maybe adjusting to this room or what, you know, how is he doing it? Is he saying, oh, okay, this room's not that great. Let's do a little bit more crowd work. You know, how does he open it? Does he always use the same closer? So just really it's helped me a lot being able to watch him, in various settings and stuff like that. So trying to learn. I'm still very much learning.
Oh, yes. Well, then I got to know the converse. What sucks about comedy? What's the real kick in the balls?
I mean, you know, it's so much of it is attached to ego. So I think you can kind of go off on that tangent of like, you know, why am I not getting booked on that show, or why didn't I get that, or how come I don't have anything tonight, and you know. So it's a kick in the balls sometimes, and you have to kind of swallow your pride with certain things. Like, I had something recently, and I won't be too detailed because then it'll be obvious, but there was definitely a moment recently where I was just like, well, shit, this is humbling. But you know what? It's like, for every time that happens, you hope something good happens. And I just have to, and I tell people this and I tell myself this, but I don't always follow it, of course. But, you know, it's kind of like you really have to figure out your own goals, like big, and then the steps to get to it, and really focus on that. Because there's always going to be distractions. There's always going to be like, oh, well, why did that person get this and I didn't get that, or whatever. And it's like, okay, what is your next step? Like, what is your goal? You can't be everything to all people. So, you know, what do you want next? Like, if I'm saying to myself, look, you need to start doing festivals, right? Then let me focus on that instead of, oh, my friends who I started comedy with are now doing sets on late night, right?
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
That's something Patrick Scott had mentioned as you know, I'm only 2.5 years into this game, so I'm literally just a pup. So talking to people that have had years in, he made a point I wouldn't have thought of. He's like, all your friends who sucked, they eventually quit. And all your friends who were awesome eventually start succeeding and leaving. And then you're kind of left in your own little bubble to keep reinventing who you are and who you hang out with and what your priorities are. And that's hard because there's no college teacher. There's no one standing there with a ruler who's going to slap you on the knuckles for not going and writing a new 5 minutes. You have to be a self-starter. And as a bunch of depressed fucks, it's hard.
It really is. And I write from inspiration and I write from life. And so for better or for worse, I'm not the type of person who sits down and writes jokes every day. I just don't. You know, and then when I'm going through stuff in my life and I don't feel particularly funny, and then some days I'm like really inspired and I'm writing a lot. So, you know, it is definitely something where you have to motivate yourself and you have to figure out the right things that will motivate you and try to stay on the positive path instead of, you know, being like really upset about what everybody else is getting and what everybody else is doing, because the truth of the matter is you're the brand and you're the product. So if you're always focused on what everybody else is doing, you're not ever going to develop your own brand that makes you unique, you know? I mean, and that's the cool thing about comedy is nobody else can be Josh Grambo. Nobody else can be Vida. you know, so you have to stay focused on that because that is it. That's the ticket, is your brand, your voice. So,
well, goddamn,
everybody else.
Every podcast, I'm worried that we're not going to end on a big philosophical note, but goddamn it, Mo, you nailed the landing. So, Miss Movida, if anyone listens to this, check her out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You guys all know the thing, at Movida, I assume?
Oh, actually, I'm at Mocha Vida, M-O-K.
Oh, yes, Mocha Vida.
V-I-D-A.
Yes. Well, check her out. This is going to be up on Spotify, YouTube, all the things, so check it out. Miss Mo, thank you so much. And you'll be getting a call again. There's so much more I wish I had to talk about, but I try to keep them around 20 minutes.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
You're the best. I'll see you out on the comedy battlegrounds.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Mo Vida, everyone. She is amazing. I got to see her do 2 half-hour sets and back-to-back nights, and watching her make the room breathe, pace her set. She's a real comic, guys. New York transplant, killing it here in the Denver scene. So grateful to have talked to her. And we'll definitely be talking to her a lot more in the future. She is obviously a wealth of information on things that us in the smaller markets don't get exposed to every day. So thank you, Miss Mo. I kind of talked over her. Her social media is at Mocavida, which is Mokavida, Mocha Vida. Check her out. She's super funny. She's got a dirty mind and a beautiful heart. Is that cheesy? Go fuck yourself. But seriously, thank you for listening. If you made it to this far, you are an angel. This show is called Comics with GRAMBO, and I am out.
Welcome to bonus stage. Reload!
People. I was talking to the same female comic. She was telling me she has an app on her phone for consent. I was like, are we not clear on what consent is? And she was like, well, you know, you have to be awake, you can't be drunk, and you have to explicitly say yes. I'm like, whoops. Half you millennials wouldn't be here if your parents had to adhere to those rules. Like, you get that, right? If you don't believe me, go home, ask your mom. Like, one of your siblings, definitely a tequila baby from that Cabo vacation. Okay, see? There's some moms in the audience like, yeah, he shouldn't have happened, but, you know, tequila! You've been married 25 years, you want your little Chardonnay coma when daddy comes knocking. I feel you, sister, I'm with you.